Hello, in today's video I'll be showing you how to replace your vehicle's fuel filter, and what this filter does is it filters out any contaminants, sediments, or impurities that may be in the fuel that's coming from your vehicle's gas tank. Ultimately making sure that all this is kept away from your vehicle's fuel injectors and combustion chamber. If the fuel wasn't filtered, these injectors could easily get clogged or damaged, affecting the performance of your engine. So it is very important to replace these ever so often so they don't get clogged themselves and affect the fuel flow and possibly your fuel pump by making it overwork itself. So how often should you actually replace these filters? Well, normally you like to follow your vehicle's owner's manual on its recommendations, but I like to replace them at least every 30,000 miles. This filter will normally be located somewhere along the frame rail connected between the main fuel line. Like on this Trans Am, it is located tucked along the rear frame rail just in front of the driver's side wheel. Some vehicles may even have it attached to the firewall connected between the fuel line and the engine. Our first very important step is to relieve the fuel pressure from the fuel system. So when you're removing the filter, the fuel doesn't spray out everywhere under pressure. So to do this, you will want to locate your fuse box that contains either your fuel pump relay or the fuel pump fuse. They both will do the job, so either one will work. And what we do here, we turn on the car, and as the engine is running, you will want to remove either the fuel pump fuse or the relay, whichever you chose. This will basically shut off the fuel pump, and the engine will continue to run using up the fuel that's left in the fuel line, the filter, and the rail. So once it uses it up, it'll shut off, thus removing any pressure in the lines. And to verify it, I'll remove the Schrader valve cap and press in the little valve. And you will notice that once I press it in, very little fuel will come out instead of a spray, confirming that we removed the pressure in the fuel rail and the lines. This next step is more of a precaution, but to be even safer, we'll want to disconnect the battery, the negative in this case. Once you got it disconnected, placing the terminal somewhere where it won't reconnect itself. And of course, you don't want to forget the safety glasses or the safety goggles. Okay, I think we're ready now. Once we're under, you'll want to have something to catch the fuel that will spill out from the filter and the line. For this, I will end up using an oil drain pan. The first thing I do is remove this bracket bolt using the 10mm socket, so it allows this fuel line to give us a little more play. Once the bolt's off, we can open up the bracket. It may not look like it gave much space, but it will help and keep the line from bending. Now to hold the filter nut, we'll want to use a 20mm wrench or an adjustable wrench, followed by a 16mm wrench to loosen the line nut. Now loosen the line nut counterclockwise or squeeze them together as I'm doing here. Once you break it loose, you should be able to just loosen it by hand. Separating it from the filter at this point, making sure that the drain pan is underneath. Now to remove this other fuel line, we'll squeeze in both of these tabs on this clip, and this will allow us to disconnect the line. Although this one's kind of stuck to the filter, so I just rotate it a little to free it up, and should now be able to slide it back and off. This filter sure holds a lot of fuel. Well anyways, with both ends off, the filter can now be removed. This filter is on this bracket pretty tight, so you'll want to maneuver it off as best you can, rotating the bracket as you slide it back. Once you're able to get it out this far, just rotate it about 90 degrees and get the filter completely off. For an added bonus, some filters may have a line connected to it that looks similar to this. So to get this style off, you'll want to use a fuel line disconnect tool that matches the size of the fuel line. In this case, it's a 3/8. You'll want to slide it over the fuel line just below the connection. Now push it into the connection to press it on the retainers. Once it does this, just slide it off like so. And here's our old filter. Just check out all this dirt inside this filter. Good thing we're replacing it. With our new filter ready, we'll want to pay attention to the flow direction before installing it. And although this one can only go in one way due to the style of connection it has, that won't always be the case. So you'll want that flow arrow to face the line going towards the engine. One thing to note, on this fuel line there's an O-ring that you'll want to make sure that it stayed on and isn't damaged. But I'll get back to that shortly. Let me just install this filter real quick. Sliding this new filter into the bracket while rotating the bracket back to how it was. To install this first line, we'll want to line up the clip to the openings on the fuel line, and once they're lined up, just push it in over the filter till you hear it click and lock in place. Now for this O-ring, you will want to inspect this O-ring for any damage or cracks in it, and for a better view, I'll remove it using a pick to slide it off, trying to avoid tearing it or damaging it. And upon inspecting it, you can see that this one's pretty flat on one side and it should be replaced. And for replacements, you will want to use fuel appropriate O-rings like these brown Viton ones that are safe for fuel, making sure you use the same size O-ring as well, which will be this one I believe, but I'll compare it under the car to be sure. With the correct one in hand, just slide it back on and thread the line nut onto the filter by hand first. Wipe the area and then tighten it with the wrench while holding the filter with the other wrench. And once it's tight, give it one good final wipe down. With both of the lines connected, let's reinstall our line bracket with the screw, making sure to avoid pinching any of the lines as you tighten it. With that done, we're now ready to reinstall the fuse and reconnect the battery. Now before attempting to start it, we'll want to build up fuel pressure by turning the key on and then off a few times. This will get your pump to turn on and fill the filter, the line, and the fuel rail with fuel. Well, let's go ahead and start it, letting it run for a few minutes and then shut it off just to verify that the filter connections are dry and not leaking. If everything checks out okay, then we are done, and so is this video. Well, I hope you found it helpful and informative. If so, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel. And please subscribe if you haven't done so.